President Trump is directing the Justice Department to investigate Democrats allegedly connected to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Files subpoenaed from the sex offender's estate show Epstein was actively shopping his political and financial knowledge to major players even after he was convicted on sex trafficking charges. Some of Epstein's emails also reference President Trump by name. The president has denied any wrongdoing and any knowledge of Epstein's crimes. Now he says questions into his relationship with Epstein are a scam, quote, with all arrows pointing to the Democrats, and that he cut ties with Epstein after Epstein's 2019 arrest. Meanwhile, a growing number of bipartisan Congress members are pressuring the Justice Department to release more of its files on Epstein. ABC News Washington Bureau Managing Editor Katherine Faulders and White House correspondent Travers are here with more on that story. Hi to you both. So, Karen, what's the latest on President Trump's call to investigate Democrats he says have ties to Epstein?
This was in a social media post earlier this morning, Diane. The president says he is directing the Attorney General Pam Bondi, the Justice Department, and the FBI to investigate a list of people. He says Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, J.P. Morgan, and others to see their ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And he says that the investigation at this point, or this whole issue related to him, is just a hoax. We're calling it back to the Russia investigation into him in that first term. He says, quote, all arrows pointing to the Democrats. Certainly the president is trying to shine the spotlight away from him and the messages now that have had his name in it and any connection that he has to Jeffrey Epstein, and put it on Democrats, high-profile Democrats. He has also said that Democrats have been doing this week, releasing those emails earlier and pushing for more transparency and the full release of the Epstein files in order to distract from what's actually happening in Washington. He says it's to distract from the government shutdown and the fact that they did not get any of their demands on health care when they were shutting down the government for the last couple of weeks. So again, the president trying to now call on the Justice Department to launch this investigation. We've seen him do this before. Now we have to see what the Justice Department will actually do with this demand from the president.
So, Katherine, what's in these files related to President Trump, and what Democrats are named in these files?
Well, I think there's a lot going on here. I think we can't really answer that question with certainty as to what Democrats are named in the files in question that Trump is talking about. Obviously, this is all a reaction to what the House Oversight Committee released, those documents from the Epstein estate. But the point is, he's asking his Justice Department and FBI to investigate. Well, remember, they have a treasure trove of documents that they're sitting on that they haven't yet publicly released. So what exactly is the nature of that investigation? What does that mean? I know that when Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, sat with Ghislaine Maxwell, down in Florida a few months back, I believe in July, he asked about specific Democrats, and Maxwell didn't have any particular recollection over some of those questions that Blanche probed her on. So the nature of the investigation, what Trump wants DOJ exactly to investigate, is pretty much entirely unclear, other than what Karen just laid out specifically in his post. Reid Hoffman, Bill Clinton, Larry Summers. I know that Blanche asked Maxwell about Clinton specifically and Hoffman. What else does the president want here? It's very clear that he just wants this probed to distract from himself being in the files, whether there's any criminal liability or not, and turn the tables and shift this over to Democrats.
And Karen, President Trump is criticizing Republicans who say they will vote to force the Justice Department to release its files on Epstein. Why?
So first you start with the 4 that voted for the discharge petition this week. And there was a pressure campaign to get some of them to switch their vote and not be in favor of that. But now next week that will go forward. And the expectation is the House will vote on that to compel the Justice Department to release the Epstein files. And it looks like you could have dozens of House Republicans voting in favor of it, maybe 40 to 50 lawmakers. The president, though, is already criticizing Republicans who have been pushing for this, saying they are weak. He says they have fallen into the clutches of Democrats because they are soft and foolish. And now the big question is, if this likely passes the House, what happens in the Senate? That is much more unclear. And if it were to get across the finish line in the Senate, it is unlikely, of course, that the president would sign it.
Katherine, what are you watching for next?
Well, I think it's exactly what Karen just laid out there in terms of the process here. If it passes the House, goes to the Senate. If it does happen to pass in the Senate and then gets to Donald Trump's desk, will he sign this? The answer is probably not. The politics, though, are quite interesting. If it passes in both chambers of Congress, Republican-led chambers of Congress and then makes it to the president's desk and he doesn't sign it at all, that he's going to have to answer why, and why his White House cares so much, for example, about pulling Lauren Boebert's name off of that discharge petition. Of course, she didn't ultimately do that. But if it's not that big of a deal, if they are being transparent, then why behind the scenes is it quite the opposite? So we'll have to see what happens on that front next.
All right, we will. Karen Travers, Katherine Faulders, thank you.